Hello, and welcome back to the Becoming You podcast, where we talk about all things self-love, mindset, and rediscovering who you are beyond the titles, beyond the to-do list, and all of the expectations that life piles on us. I am your host, Lisa Hardie, and I am a self-love and life coach. And before we dive into today's topics, I really want to take a moment and pause and acknowledge the significance of this day. If you are watching this on the release date, it is Tuesday, November 11th, Remembrance Day. And today we honor and remember all of the brave men and women who have served and sacrificed for our freedom. Their courage really reminds us that strength and resilience lives in all of us. And it feels fitting in a way that we're talking about releasing the emotional burden and finding peace within ourselves today. So wherever you're listening from, I invite you to take a deep breath with me and a quiet moment of gratitude to all those who have made it possible for us to live, love, and grow in the world that we live in today. All right, let's dive into today's episode because we're talking about something that so many of us struggle with: guilt. I used to think guilt was sort of this badge of honor, like it proved that I cared. It sounds so ridiculous now that I think about it. But if I didn't feel guilty, I wasn't trying hard enough. But here's the thing: guilt isn't proof of love. It's proof that you're human. And sometimes it's proof that you're actually carrying way too much emotional responsibility for the things that aren't actually yours to carry. For me, mom guilt used to show up in sort of the smallest ways, like when I'd spend time working on my business instead of hanging out with my spouse or my kids. Or if I'd go for a walk, I would really start thinking, well, I should be doing the laundry. And then I'd feel guilty for not doing the laundry. And later, it really evolved into something deeper. When my relationship ended, I felt guilty for not being able to fix it, for not being enough to hold it all together. I blamed myself for so long. And honestly, that kind of guilt doesn't just sit quietly. It shapes the way you see yourself. It becomes this invisible filter between who you are and who you think you should be. So let's unpack this a bit because I think there are many of you that can relate to this. Guilt is that emotional alarm that tends to go off when our actions or thoughts go against our values. It's supposed to guide us, right? It's supposed to help us recognize when we've done something that doesn't align with who we want to be. But most of us, we've been conditioned to feel guilty for simply having needs. We feel guilty for resting, for setting boundaries, for saying no. This is a big one. For not fixing the things that were never really meant to be ours to fix. And along the way, guilt stops being guidance and it starts being a punishment. And let's be real, moms especially, we get fed a hefty dose of guilt culture, right? We're taught that being selfless is the ultimate form of love. But what happens when you're so selfless that you disappear? And I'm trying really hard not to get emotional when I just said that because I know what it's like to disappear. I know what it's like to completely lose yourself in that guilt and how hard it is to come out of it. Whew. When my marriage was ending, I remember sitting on the couch one night after a hard conversation, just staring at the wall, feeling like I failed. I kept replaying every argument in my head, every different scenario, and how I could have done things different, every choice that I made, thinking if I had just said or done something differently, maybe if I tried a little harder, maybe things would be different. And that's what guilt does. It convinces you that you have control over the things that were never fully yours to begin with. Marriage takes two people, it takes the effort of two people. And for so long, I carried the burden on myself, thinking I was the one 100% to blame or at fault, when really there was some give and take on both of our parts. That's what guilt does. It whispers that you should have known better. You should have tried harder. You should have been more patient. But the truth is, you can't carry both guilt and growth. One keeps you trapped in the past, the other one helps you look forward. And at some point, I realized that guilt was just, me trying to hold on to this version of my life that doesn't exist anymore. It was me trying to rewrite a story that was already finished. That realization didn't come overnight. It came through a bit of therapy, reflection, a lot of tears, and choosing over and over again to forgive myself for not being perfect. Because you don't have to be perfect to be worthy of peace. And let's talk for a second about what's actually happening when you feel guilty. Psychologists say guilt is a moral emotion. So it's meant to motivate us to repair relationships or change behavior. But when that guilt is misplaced, when it's based on unrealistic expectations or things outside of our control, it stops being productive. In fact, research shows that chronic guilt is linked to anxiety, low self-esteem, and even depression. It becomes this loop that convinces your brain that you're always in the wrong, even when you're not. And the more guilt you feel, the more you start to self-censor. You stop doing things that actually bring you joy because you're convinced you don't deserve them. That's why we have to start questioning our guilt instead of automatically believing it. So let's get practical. How do we actually start overcoming guilt? Here are a few shifts that truly changed everything for me. Number one, name the source of your guilt. Put a name to it. Ask yourself, what exactly am I feeling guilty for? Half the time, the guilt isn't even yours. It's inherited from what society, your parents, or your past relationships taught you. Maybe it's guilt for needing rest. Maybe it's guilt for letting go of a relationship. Maybe it's guilt for wanting more than what you currently have. Whatever it is, put a name to it. Because when you name it, you take your power back from it. Number two, ask, is this true or is this just a story I'm telling myself? And this one is so powerful. I love this one because guilt often thrives on the stories that we've created. Stories about what it means to be a good mom, a good wife, or a good woman and what that might look like. But you get to define what that means. You get to define what that looks like for yourself now. When that voice of guilt says you're selfish for wanting time alone, ask yourself, is that actually true? Or is that an old story I've outgrown? It's probably the latter. Number three, and this one is a powerful one, and it's to forgive yourself out loud. And it might sound so simple, but it is so healing. I literally sat down one day and looked in the mirror and said to myself, I forgive you for trying to make everyone happy. I forgive you for not knowing how to fix everything. And I forgive you for being human. Hearing myself saying those words. Again, I'm trying not to get emotional here, but just hearing it out loud made such a difference. Because it's not about pretending everything is okay. It's about releasing the shame tied to your past choices. And number four is to redirect guilt into gratitude. When guilt shows up, flip it. Just flip it. Instead of saying, I feel guilty for not spending enough time with my partner, try something like, I'm grateful that I value connection and I'm learning how to create it in healthier ways. Instead of, I feel guilty for taking time for me, try, I'm grateful that I'm learning to honor myself so I can show up for the people that I love. See how powerful those little switches can be? Gratitude dissolves guilt. It reminds you of what's good instead of what's missing. And letting go of guilt does not mean that you've stopped caring. It means that you start caring for yourself too. When I finally allowed myself to release guilt from my marriage ending, for the time I thought I wasted, for the expectations I didn't meet, something truly beautiful happened. And that is, I stopped living in the should have. I should have done this, or I shouldn't have reacted that way, or and I should have done XYZ. And I started living in the what now. The what now life is a very beautiful place to be, and it will shift everything. Because guilt keeps you stuck in what's already happened. Yes, my marriage ended. It ended 3 years ago. It's already happened. A year after, even 9 months after. Now what? Well, now I have an opportunity for a fresh start, and I get to create the beautiful life that I dream of living each and every day. I get to create a life that I'm excited to wake up to each and every morning. That's beautiful. And I can learn from it. What can I do different this time? What changes can I implement in my next relationship? How can I show up better for my partner? I'm not dwelling on the past when I do that, but I'm taking it as a learning opportunity and a way to show up differently for myself, for my kids, for my future partner. And that's the foundation of growth. You're not punishing yourself, but you're learning from yourself. So here's your challenge for this week. I want you to write a forgiveness letter to yourself. It doesn't have to be long or fancy. Just start with, I forgive myself for ... and let whatever needs to come out, come out. You can burn it, you can keep it, you can read it out loud, you can cry through it. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're releasing it. You're releasing that guilt that comes with that story. You deserve to be free from guilt that's been weighing on you for far too long. And you've already learned the lessons. Now it's time to let the punishment go too. And if you take nothing else from today, let it be this. Guilt doesn't make you a better mom, partner, or person. It just makes you feel smaller. You can love deeply, show up fully, and still choose you without the guilt. That's where real self-love begins. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with another mom or friend who needs to hear it. And if you're craving a space to grow and connect with other women who are working through the same stuff, come join me inside the Joyful Mom Collective. It's a community for moms who are ready to let go of guilt, embrace joy, and find themselves again, one small shift at a time. I will put the link below. Doors open officially in early December, and I would love to have you part of this community. And until next time, remember, you're doing your best and your best is enough. And don't forget that you are worth showing up for, always. And I will see you next week when we start our 4-part holiday series, how to calm the chaos during the holidays. So be sure to stay tuned. And as always, I appreciate you listening. See you next time on the Becoming You podcast.